Dead children are a bad marketing tool. Marketing without a call to action is bad marketing. So, this is a pretty odd thing to bring up, so I need to start supplying the many layers of context to explain this and why I'm even talking about it. Israel has resumed attacks after the ceasefire lapsed, and it appears that Israel was probably still doing some overtime bombing and sniping during the ceasefire as well. Being a libertarian, I subscribe to a lot of libertarian sites. Libertarians like myself are anti war. However, for some libertarians, it's very much close to their sole focus. And this ends up creating an interesting nexus in the internet realm, where you have the old time true anti war liberals who disappear with the war with Ukraine, and you end up seeing them posting alongside of these uh, anti war libertarians as well. Now, I like these people, and I do wish them success. Anything that inhibits war is a good thing. And what it is, though, I'm not just wired the same way these people are. Although I'm against war, it's not my passion, it's not my number one thing. So, this nexus of anti war liberals and anti war libertarians creates an opening for Palestinians on the ground to present their view on what is happening. And this ends up resulting in a relatively uh, macabre parade of pictures and videos of dead children, often very mutilated and accompanied by wailing family members. Now, it's not that I find this so disturbing that I don't want to see it. It's that I view it as kind of a waste of time. What do I mean? Well, when I see a dead Palestinian child, what is it actually telling me? Well, I know there's a war going on, and I know people are being killed, so it didn't tell me anything new there. Did this just happen? Or is it a recycled picture or footage from this never ending years long cycle of butchery? Is it even Gaza? Was this an intentional or an accidental thing? Are the anecdotes accompanying the video or pictures accurate? And to be honest, I've seen a bunch that aren't. I've had several instances where I've seen signs and such in Arabic in the background purporting to say one thing, and when I get them translated, they are not saying that at all. But just saying, there's enough problems out there to bring in things into question. So is Israel less concerned with collateral damage than other Western powers are when they're fighting in these places? Now, some of the posters out there are outright saying that these attacks on children are deliberate. And some probably are, because that's the horrible nature of war. Some people become unhinged and do horrible things. But there's no proof of how much this is happening in a deliberate way. Now, many of the posters out there are suggesting that Israel doesn't care about collateral damage. One chart purported to show the differences between the child death rates between Israel's bombing campaign in Gaza and the US campaign in Iraq. And the chart shows a per capita death rate, and via this chart, many more children died in the bombing of Gaza than in the US bombing of Iraq. Now, this is pretty much an apple to oranges comparison because there's a lot of differences between Iraq and Gaza. Militarily, Gaza is fortified. Iraq only had single point fortifications scattered around. Iraq's habitable area had a population density of around 96 people per square mile. Gaza has a population density of 6,110 people per square miles. The population density is 63 times greater than Iraq. And that 96 figure I am giving you is actually cutting out all the uninhabitable areas of their deserts. If you just went on pure landmass of Iraq, the density would be 58 rather than 96. So I normalized the number for where people actually live. Um, in fact, for Gaza, it's literally one of the most densely populated regions of the world. Gaza's population density is roughly the equivalent of what London's is. Now, for the most part, in terms of doing the apples to oranges comparison, Iraq didn't commit to a last stand defense. Uh, Part of it being the size of Iraq, they had the ability to scatter and flee. They really didn't try to hold their capital very long. For the most part, they fell back, realizing they couldn't really hold it. Whereas Gaza, either due to a situation where they have no place to fall back to, or the fact that they're determined to resist. Either one doesn't matter, you get the same result. People standing in place in a highly densely populated area is going to inflict more casualties. Iraq did not have to be cleared block by block, with the exception of maybe Fallujah. Iraq had less military infrastructure mixed into the civilian zones. Iraq's military was spread out. Uh, Hamas's military is concentrated. Again, the issue with the small size of the area. Iraq's percentage of children in demographics is at the time before our bombing campaign was lower than Gaza's. So Gaza's population is actually younger. There are less, or excuse me, there are more 17 and under uh, people living in Gaza than there were in Iraq at the time of the bombing. Gaza, in fact, is considered one of the youngest populations in the world. Now, do these facts absolve Israel of being careless or deliberate? No. But the evidence used to boost this idea of them being careless and deliberate is weak. And uh, the idea of comparing Iraq to Gaza doesn't work. So, why post pictures of dead children? Well, I think part of it falls under the differences between uh, the, the left and the right. And you may have seen recently there's a paper titled Ideological Differences in the Expanse of the Moral Circle by Waits and others. Uh, this study showed that the right had very strong empathy for its closest circles, like the family, community, local groups, and extends out to the nation, but empathy drops off rapidly with each circle away from their closest circle of empathy. Whereas in the study, the left participants claim nearly equal empathy with all humans, no matter where they are, and to some extent, all animals equally with humans, and on the extreme end of it, all things, even inanimate objects. Now, the center wasn't really defined in this study, but doing a little bit of regression analysis would seem to indicate that the centrist circle of empathy would extend a little bit beyond the conservative circles, but would likely experience very sharp drop offs with each new circle. Based on that, centrists are likely to empathize more than conservatives with humans outside their nation. However, they're going to identify more with humans who are more like them in traits rather than all humans equally. The point, the dead children of the Middle East, Muslims, will elicit less sympathy with the majority of Americans than those who are making the original posts. The people making the posts are communicating and connecting to the people most like them. Now, for the most part, I believe many of the people posting these pictures assume that everyone should feel the same outrage they do. This fits in with other studies that show that the right tends to understand the left better than the left understands the right. So, from the left's perspective, this should be good universal outreach, when it in fact reaches a minority of people. The other issue is death is repulsive. And I mean that in a literal way. We are hardwired to not want to deal with death because, well, evolutionarily, being around dead things is not good for you. So, beyond bouts of morbid curiosity, most people do not want to see dead bodies. Even more, they don't want to see mangled bodies. And the very least thing they want to see is the bodies of children. Now, there's another group that used to use children as their major, or use dead children as their major form of outreach. And this was the American pro life movement. For decades, their trademark was protest signs and pamphlets with bloody masses of aborted babies. For decades, this was a stagnant movement. This type of outreach, both the kind for pro lifers and the kind for anti war people that contain dead bodies, does have some minor value in that people who deeply hold your same values might be willing to donate time and money. However, in terms of converting people or bringing on outsiders, it's highly ineffective. Now, pro lifers changed their strategy in the last 10 to 15 years. Their pictures now are of intact babies, sonograms of the most human looking form of fetuses in the womb, emphasizing their humanity and potential. That movement pushed for pre birth sonograms. Women who were pregnant and saw a sonogram of their live human baby had more trouble aborting. The emphasis on heartbeat followed similar lines of emotional ensnarement. The thumping sound of a heart, no matter if those cells are not yet pumping blood, is sound in motion. It sounds like life. Now, how you feel about abortion is irrelevant to my point. The point is, live babies are more effective outreach than dead bloody blobs. That's a hard one to say. So, back to dead Palestinian children. Another salient feature of these posts is a total lack of a call to action. So, if I share your outrage, what do I do? Should I send money somewhere? Nothing's indicated. Should I join a group? Don't see any mentioned. Is there a protest I'm supposed to go to? No, nothing listed. Is there a law being passed that I should call my congresspeople about? Here to be. Ultimately, I believe there are four sources to these dead children posts. The first are Palestinians and their allies, and they're just trying to get information out in hopes that it does something, because they actually are in a position where they don't have any call to action they can give us. The second group is just clueless libertarians who don't understand the barest basics of marketing and outreach. And this is something that's endemic in this group because, well, as long as I've been with it, I've dealt with people who don't grasp marketing at all. The third group probably does it for engagement. And I'm not pointing fingers here. I'm just saying some of them do. I mean, sure, it's not massive engagement, but sadly, dead children do generate more clicks than the content I create. So who am I who am I to cast aspersions? Now the final group is virtue signaling. People who claim to feel the pain of loss by the death of a distant foreign child, claiming it to be akin to something they might feel to a loss of a family member. They are trying to tell you that their empathy is greater than yours, thus showing their superiority. And again, not pointing fingers. I mean, you know who you are. you know which group you fall into. Um, Now, if anyone actually wanted to talk about uh, marketing that would probably be more useful, well, you could take kind of a hint from some of the pictures I showed here. You notice, with the exception of one dead German soldier who nobody has much feelings about anymore, all my pictures were pretty much of live people, and any ones that indicated dead people were not in view. I think these pictures are more potent if you have the proper messaging and everything else around them. I don't think people want to really get into more of the marketing aspect of how to make this work, but if you do, well, ask me in the comments and we'll talk about it. But how about you guys? Are you even aware that essentially the bombing has resumed in Gaza? Do you have any feelings on how this is going? I mean, is it causing massive casualties? Is it pretty much the same thing as always? What's going on? Where do you see this going? Is there any way to generate the kind of outrage these people would like to see where there would be a call to end this? All right. So please smash the like button. If the YouTube algorithms brought you here and you're not a regular subscriber, look at my other titles. You'll see that I get into a lot of things that you probably are into as well. Please consider subscribing. And if you know someone who might find this interesting, share it with them. Thank you for spending time with me this evening. Hope to see you again in a future video.